Welcome to Mastering Terror Part 2. Terromancers are all about conditions and bleed stacks. So in this video we're going to take an in-depth look at the skills we have that apply conditions, remove conditions, and even how to turn conditions applied to us and flip them against the enemy team. By the end of this video you will have all the knowledge you need to pull off the 18 bleed stack multiple condition opener you are watching right now. Let's start with the staff skills that deal with conditions. In the second spot is Mark of Blood. This is an AoE 2-stack bleed that affects up to 5 targets in the triggered area. It also applies regeneration on allies and is on a 6-second cooldown. Using this back-to-back can give you a 4-stack bleed, so use this ability often. In the number 3 spot we have Chillblains. This is another great ground targeting AoE skill that creates a poison combo field and can hit up to 5 enemies in the area. It applies both poison and chill. In the number 4 spot we have Putrid Mark. This is an amazing ability when used correctly. It will take up to 3 conditions that you have on yourself and flip them on up to 5 enemies in the triggered area. This is also a blast finisher. Taking the sigil of Geomancy on both weapon sets will give you a 3-stack AoE bleed every time you weapon swap in combat. Plague is such an amazing ability that has so many subtle uses that can change the momentum of the game. And that is what I love most about playing Terrormancer, is so many of the things we do are subtle but game changers. Plague grants us stability and causes repeated AoE poison. Also notice that when we enter Plague, not only does it trigger Geomancy, but we are granted access to 3 new skills. The first is Withering Plague, which adds bleeding to our Plague. The second is Plague of Darkness, which adds blindness. And finally the third is Plague of Pestilence, which adds both cripple and weakness. You can check out video 1 for tips on using Plague. In Death Shroud there are 2 abilities that apply conditions. The first is Tainted Shackles. This ability is amazing. It applies 3 stacks of torment over 4 seconds on up to 5 targets. It increases the damage if the enemy target is moving, and it ends with an immobilize. The cool thing about this ability is it casts very quickly, and while it looks like a channel, it's actually not, and what that means is you can cast other spells during the duration of Tainted Shackles. In Death Shroud we also have Dark Path, which is another one of my favorite abilities. It applies a 3-stack bleed, it applies a chill, and it is also a gap closer. And when used with the trait Path of Corruption, it also converts 2 boons into conditions. Looking at Scepter Dagger, our number 1 ability is Blood Curse, which does turn to Rending Curse and Putrid Curse before it comes back to Blood Curse. The first 2 apply 1 stack of bleeding, the third applies poison. I personally look at this ability as filler and as a way to maintain bleeding and poison rather than trying to stack bleeds. You see, the highest stacks I can get from spamming this ability is 6, which occasionally spikes to 7 and maybe even 8, but that is only because of the trait Barbed Precision. Next we have Grasping Dead, which is an AoE ground targeting ability that applies a 2-stack bleed and a cripple on up to 5 targets in the triggered area. This has almost a 1-second casting time, so oftentimes you will have to target in front of the area you want to hit, especially if your enemies are fleeing from you. Our next ability is Feast of Corruption, and while this doesn't actually apply conditions, it does relate to conditions, so I'm going to cover it. This ability grants more life force and does more damage based on how many conditions you have on the target you are using it on. Next we have Deathly Swarm, which causes blindness on the target and can bounce up to 3 times. This is also a way to transfer up to 3 conditions on yourself to the enemy target. And finally in Scepter Dagger we have Enfeebling Blood. This is an AoE ground target that can affect up to 5 targets and causes a 2-stack bleed and also applies weakness. Opening as a Terrormancer for high damage and high bleed stacks requires you to use a lot of your abilities and to weapon swap and move in and out of Death Shroud quickly. This is going to take some practice, but if you stick with it, I'm sure you'll get it down. Starting from Staff, cast your Mark of Blood, then dodge roll and weapon swap towards your enemy. Next casting Blood Curse, Enfeebling Blood, Grasping Dead, Deathly Swarm. in the order you feel is best for the situation. If your Nightmare Fear has not triggered, you may want to cast Deathly Swarm first. Now cast Feast of Corruption to maximize your life force, and enter Death Shroud. Next cast Dark Path, then Doom. Cancel Death Shroud. Now cast Blood Curse until your weapon swap cooldown is ready. Weapon swap, and drop another Mark of Blood. Now at this point you can drop a Reaper's Mark, or a Chillblains, or run a Corrupt Boon, dodge roll, whatever you need to do. Use your Fleshworm teleport to get out of here. This is just a basic opener. Now let's take a look at the same opener versus a warrior with a Tainted Shackles variation in real time.